Welcome everyone to an exciting webinar here called Power Pair about guest surveys and secret shops or mystery shops. ComOps is excited to be joined today by a couple great guests from HS Brands, one of the leaders in global mystery shops and secret shops, and also two of our mutual clients, Gila River Resorts and Casinos, which we'll learn a little bit more about in a moment. Overall, today, our goal is to explore how guest surveys and mystery shops can work together to really strengthen the loyalty and revenue in hospitality, and even more specifically in a casino setting. Oftentimes, those two are happening, but they're not talked about how they can really be a force multiplier when done together. So with that said, I'll turn it over to our panelists. Maybe I'll ask Michael from HS Brands to start, and then we'll turn it over to Greg and Greg from Gila River to say hello, a quick introduction, and then we'll get into some of our content.
Thanks, George. I'm Michael Mills. I oversee sales and marketing for HS Brands. I've been with the company for 16 years, and it's given me the opportunity to really dive into guest service. In the beginning of my career, I was on the operations side. So I actually got to build our casino and hospitality mystery shopping programs. And it just gave me great insight to all the fun stuff we'll talk about today.
Hey there, everyone. Greg DiVincent, Corporate Vice President of Marketing for Gila River Resorts and Casinos, supporting brand marketing, social media, player development, promotions, entertainment, and various verticals here at the Enterprise. We're an enterprise here in Arizona with 4 casino properties. I've been here for coming up on 2 years. It's been a very fun endeavor here. And with that, I'll pass it on to Greg R.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gregory Ramirez. Just so you know the difference, Greg D and Greg R. I have been with Gila River now for just a little over 2 years. I started in our guest service program, which is very similar to what our new customer experience program is. That makes me our corporate customer experience manager with the properties here. The elevation from guest experience to customer experience has really allowed for us to elevate hospitality and focus on making things less transactional, but more home welcoming, and how we can build that relationship and loyalty with our guests. The moves we've made with hospitality so far have been fantastic. So I'm looking forward to continuing that.
Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for your introductions. Let's get right into it here. So we want to talk about today are how surveys and mystery shops really work together. Let's start by talking a little bit about surveys. That is where I come from, the world that I come from. And at ComOps, we implement and service a lot of structured listening programs for hospitality and other industries, where there's a post-transaction or relationship survey, really giving operators a lot of rich, real-time data, allowing them to close the loop and really allowing them to understand what their customers, what their guests want and what they think, rather than just guessing. So we often say it kind of brings data to the table when you need to make a decision. That's what I say as the guy that's sometimes selling this. But let me hear maybe Greg DiVincent from you. So we implemented a survey program for Gila River. What do you think are the biggest benefits of pretty foundational but really impactful program? Would love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and there's so many benefits. I mean, it's really from quantitative data to qualitative data. You're going to see what your guests are thinking, maybe directly with a specific complaint, or an aggregate with something like a net promoter score or service scores across various verticals that you've set the system up to analyze, whether that be like service or hotel or slots or cocktail service or whatnot. And, I've been fortunate to work with a guest service platform, and you, George, are at multiple companies. So here at Gila Resorts and Casinos, as well as my previous company. And it really is a game changer in the space of getting feedback from your customers. It's so important to get feedback from your customers and players. Me being on the marketing side, we try to come up with these crazy programs, whether it's some sort of offer or promotion, and we need to hear the success of those from our guests with these platforms. You get to hear it in real time. Specific example of something, just this Saturday, we ran Hoka shoe giveaway, and it had a very different check-in process than a normal gifting program. So the customers had to look at shoes, pick a color, pick a size. Transaction times were much longer per person, upwards of 2 minutes per person. And so that created lines. Some guests didn't want to get in line and wait, get their shoes. With the Medallia system on Monday, Tuesday, we're able to pull comments of guests who reference the Hoka giveaway, send those out to our casino hosts, call every single one of those guests and say, "I'm so sorry for the service. We still want to get you your pair of shoes. Why don't you go ahead and give us your size, the style you'd like, and we'll go ahead and get those ordered for you." So we were able to turn that experience that probably happened on that Saturday into kind of a wow moment of fulfilling that promise of guests getting that promotion in a way that they probably did not expect. We want to send you a pair of shoes, right? So I think that will absolutely translate into repeat visitation and a more loyal customer. That's just one example. There's hundreds, right, out there. That's kind of one way that we've used the program.
I love it. Greg, thanks for sharing that. Well, first of all, I can't say I've ever heard of a giveaway like that at a casino, of a pick out your shoe size and color. And that sounds pretty interesting and not your typical vacuum or toaster giveaway. So interesting there to begin with. And yeah, I think it shows a lot about how the platform can be used in a really simple way of, okay, we did something new. Maybe it didn't go perfectly, but it allows us to follow up. Let me kind of shift that same kind of thinking to Mr. Ramirez. So from a guest experience perspective in your role, how do you then take that type of feedback, Greg, and turn it into improvements? So next time you have a giveaway, for instance, and next time you have that giveaway, it goes a little bit better, runs a little bit smoother, ultimately to kind of drive change. What does it look like from your standpoint?
Well, building off of what Greg had mentioned, when those comments come in, the customer experience department, myself, our specialists that are actually at the properties, we receive those. So we get to review those. And then when it comes to corporate department or site specific departments within the properties, really happens on 3 levels. So the first thing is we review any pending alerts that are pressing within NPS. That's anything that's really kind of scored between a 0 to 3. So that allows us to connect with those guests that have left pressing matters, that really had a poor experience, get the guest recovery, connect them with the host, as Greg mentioned, to correct that and get them resolved. And then from there, typically what we'll do is, after those alerts have been handled, we will review all the daily comments, because even within good comments that are received or neutral comments, there's still feedback there. So there's still somebody had a good experience, but they might have mentioned a department or two that did not do the best, but they still enjoyed their experience in a way that would make them come back. And then when it comes to ensuring those, as I had mentioned, the collaboration between the departments, whether that be corporate level or property level, the teams are then, disseminated out to give that information and share those comments and find a way to create either a recognition piece for the team members or departments that have created a great experience, or create a coaching plan, create a way to train and create that hospitable experience, whether it be during a promotion, whether it be interacting with a cocktail server, someone at our players club, or someone just walking in and not feeling the vibe or the ambiance that they were looking for and expected when they walked into a new casino, such as our Santan property or our flagship here at Wild Horse Pass. So breaks into those 3 pieces, but that's where we pull that data daily and then again, disseminate it out to the appropriate departments.
It's really good to have Gregory dealing with most of the one-to-one feedback in the different departments. And then myself here in corporate marketing, because we oversee a lot of the strategy for the organization, being able to look at things a little more holistic and say, how do we implement programs to affect change? Whether it's, this department may be underperforming on scores, or this process isn't working the best. How do we fix these holistic pieces? While Greg is attacking kind of all of these individual departments and coaching and really focusing on the guest service, we're focusing on strategic programs. So we're kind of looking at the information from two different angles, tackling it in two different ways, which I think is a big part of our success.
Not to jump too far ahead, but I think what Gregory Ramirez just said actually is a good little segue. When he has an opportunity to go out and do training, that's when you use mystery shopping. That's when you have the mystery shoppers come in and actually test the training to see the efficacy of the training. And that's kind of one of the ways that we slot in and kind of combine with them.
I think in our company, we have a lot of great CX programs. And I think the most mature and the best ones, all levels of the organization are involved with the program in some way. It's not just the middle level, the property management. That's typically where it starts, but it's above at the corporate level. And it's also below at the supervisory or even line level team members that they're seeing that feedback. Greg, to your point about recognition, and everyone is invested in this program. But Michael, it's a good call out. Secret shops are a really valuable part of this. If the end goal here for our Greg is on the phone is to improve guest experience, improve loyalty, drive more revenue, drive repeat visitation, a survey program helps, but it isn't the only thing, and it shouldn't be. And I think that's what we're here to kind of talk about. I think that's probably the novel takeaway and maybe the hot take from today's webinar is we are a survey provider. We're a CX platform professional services provider, but we also think it should be complementary to other things that you are also doing. So Michael, tell me, what do you think from your seat is the biggest benefit from a secret shop program?
Well, our programs, for me, the only way that you can truly see the efficacy of your training and how your team is operating in the constructs of their standard operating procedures and their service standards and their brand standards. So when we go and build these programs, we work heavily with the executive team to make sure that we're building a journey that actually gets this feedback for them. So you have perception on the survey side, but you get almost a bridge to reality on the mystery shopping side. And if you think about the amount of time and the dollars that get invested into these training programs and building out your service standards and brand standards, the investment in actually testing it and getting an independent view is highly valuable.
What I'd say, Michael, independent, but it's also an expert view, right? Your mystery shoppers know what they're doing. They do this for a living. I think that's something that's interesting to me. So Greg Ramirez, can you share from that expert team that Michael has out there conducting mystery shops at your properties, what are some of the insights that have surfaced in the past that have helped you improve your guest experience?
I would have to say that some of the biggest insights that we've learned about is our quality of service. We've learned about our food and beverage when it comes to timeliness, quality, to share with those departments that oversee that, because having food venues here, whether it's a QSR, a quick service restaurant, or a full dining experience, being able to understand what that looks like, how they feel, how they enjoy their menu is super important. But it's also been insightful to know what the casino floor looks like. What do the guests and players actually experience when they're there? Is it a true, genuine, sincere connection that they're making with our team members when somebody pays out a jackpot? Is somebody coming over, just turning the key and then saying, I'll be right back? And then once they come back, they get really excited and they start to celebrate the guests because now they're looking for a tip payout or some sort of excitement and follow-up. Start to finish, the guest will enjoy all pieces of that. And so those are the biggest insights that we've seen happen. And then again, just connecting genuine conversations, genuine experiences that create that loyalty, that make them want to come back and spend their money, that make them want to come back and spend their time in any of our properties. Do they come to one and they go, hey, I want to actually visit the other ones and see what those are like? So that's where the insight comes from. And that's what we share with our teams to make them understand the how and the why behind it all.
Yeah, that's helpful to hear, Greg. And I'm sure with multiple properties, you also get this kind of force multiplier of being able to see truly an apples to apples comparison of each of your properties evaluated by on the same standards, by the same team, in the same time period. Like, that's something that, sure, there might be social media reviews and surveys going out at that same time, but not the same person giving you a survey for each one of your locations. So that's something definitely that, in my mind, mystery shoppers kind of unlock. Something though that I can't help but thinking in my past as a hotel front desk agent, which is where I started, sometimes the evaluation that would come by whatever firm that might be, and there's plenty of them, sometimes felt like a compliance check more than a tool to improve and make sure we're headed in the right direction from a service perspective. Do you do anything in Gila River to make sure this isn't viewed in a negative light from a compliance perspective by your team?
Yeah, I mean, you do need to make sure, for one, that you have, and not so much from a compliance standpoint, maybe like compliance of your guest service standards, but it has to be done in a way to where it can be trained upon to make sure you have the right company that's helping you do these shops. In the past, we've had different companies, and when we switched from one to another, we learned a lot of things that were happening, right? Timeliness of a server coming by and cocktail service on the floor, just all these things that we learned because, frankly, the other company was telling us what we wanted to hear. And, you do have to make sure that your questionnaire, your survey, or how the mystery shop is constructed is learning what you want to learn, and you're getting to the standard level, whether that's a Forbes standard level or some other standard level. You want to make sure you're getting to those standard levels and you're checking those boxes. Form of compliance, it's really more guest service compliance. Are they doing the things they're supposed to do for us to get to that accreditation that we're looking for? But mystery shops can be used in every industry, right? From banking to nightclubs to casinos. Michael has some great nightclub stories there.
I would like to piggyback off that. When we deal with an organization, one of the things that I always try to impart on them is that creating a positive atmosphere around the mystery shops is so important. And I know we've discussed this. One of the things we loved about working with this organization is all of their top executives were very much involved in this process. When George and I were first meeting with your team, Greg, we knew it was going to be a success for everyone involved right out of the gate. Because when all the top guys and women are truly engaging in these programs, they create kind of positivity around it. It doesn't become is this compliance sort of thing. It's an opportunity for people to show how good they are at their job. And I think those are the most successful programs.
I couldn't agree more. So, Michael, let's dig in a little bit more on that thread and get to what the meat of the webinar here is today, which is about the combination of these two. So surveys, CX, and then mystery shop. So I'm curious, from your standpoint, how do you view these two very different but kind of similar things as complementing each other to, at the end of the day, paint a complete picture?
I look at them as pieces of a pie. With the surveys, you get incredible feedback about someone's perception and the experience that they're having, but they don't know what your internal service standards are, and they don't know what your brand standards are or your SOPs. So if you've put the time and effort to create these standards that you think are going to drive loyalty, revenue, and success, you want to be able to test against that. And you're not going to be able to test against your service standards and SOPs through a survey. You need to send somebody in that's targeted. But the interesting thing is, as we move further towards, obviously everyone's talking AI and big data and these things. When you have multiple data sets and data points, you realize that sometimes you can learn things that you wouldn't have expected. We talk about a case study from the Las Vegas Strip where one of the properties, they were having guest service issues at the front desk. They were getting that from their surveys. So they take the mystery shops, and the mystery shoppers go in and they actually test. And through a combination of guest feedback and employee feedback, what we actually realized was that they were understaffed in the employee dining room. And that was making employees take too long to get back to the front desk, which was creating this issue. And without actually looking at all three pieces of the pie, you wouldn't have known that. You would have thought that there was something deficient at the front desk, and it wasn't. Try to look at things more holistically, and then we get into things like sentiment analysis. So we're just going down this road towards AI and big data, and we're going to be able to tell stories that we were never able to tell before. We're going to learn things that we were never able to learn before. So it's exciting, but it's really interesting, right? When you're like, okay, well, there must be something going on here. And it's like, well, that actually wasn't the issue. The issue was over here. And the only way that you could ever know that is by looking at all of these pieces and not having them siloed, actually bringing them together.
Like, that's a really, I mean, number one, a great story and kind of a funny story in a way, not somewhere you would look when you think about the front desk. I'm curious, maybe with Greg Ramirez or DiVincent, either of you have an example, a similar example from Gila River, where you combine both survey and mystery shop data, and the result impacted loyalty or revenue.
Yeah. So there's definitely an intersection, as it's been discussed, between the mystery shops and the feedback that we received through the Medallia program, and understanding that a mystery shop that comes through is a one-time shot of what the shopper experienced during that one visit. One advantage that we have is we have 3 visits a month or 3 visits every quarter, and they see every shift. So we know what a gray shift looks like, what a day shift looks like, and what a swing shift looks like. The success story, and one of the biggest places that we've had the most feedback and biggest pieces to share with, is within our Players Club. So our Players Club is kind of the heart, the hub of the casino. Typically, that's where most people start their trip to get their new cards, check their rewards, check their promotions. So being able to create that homey, hospitable experience using their name, explaining to them dining rewards or how they can use those things, what events are going on, allows for them to know what's going to happen during their visit there. So that's been something that's allowed for us to know where that's being created through a mystery shop. But then when you look at the Medallia feedback and the guest surveys that come through, you see where that alignment comes through, because they talk about promotions that have been discussed with them. They talk about and name individuals that helped them and assisted with them. And most of them, through the Players Club interaction that starts, a lot of them will say, I come back because of Janet. I come back because they smile and they discuss with me. Because there's some guests that when they're on the floor, they may not go to the Players Club, but someone doesn't take the time to explain their rewards, show them how they can use their dining or drinks or for food. So again, that intersection between the two happens. And one of the biggest places we've seen it is kind of that starting point with our Players Club, and then how that goes through, because now they have sort of an expectation and a standard of what the rest of their experience is going to be at that property during the visit.
So to jump in there, because it's actually really, I don't know if funny is the word, but in Greg DiVincent's world, they design loyalty programs to bring customers back, bring in people. It's shocking how, when you do mystery shops, how little people know about the loyalty programs when their job is to actually interact with the customers and impart that valuable information to them. So that's like a direct ROI for us, right? Like that's something where we can say, going and just testing that, making sure that people at your loyalty desk actually understand what your loyalty program is and can answer questions and provide that information. Super, super powerful.
Yeah. And you're right. Our loyalty programs, especially in the casino world, are far too complicated. And now that customers are in every loyalty program with every vertical they work in, from banking to airlines to casinos to Ubers, it's, you can't expect them to memorize every element of it. So
yeah,
the staff, they need to know.
And one last thing I'll add with that is the team members that spend time at our Players Club and start the interactions and start the visit, to the team members that are on our casino floor that do know those promotions, do know those advantages of our loyalty program. The more we talk about it, the less we hear that this casino does better. This casino offers me more, because we're showing them the advantage of what it means to be a Gila customer, what it means to visit one property versus the next, because promotions may happen differently from one to the other. So the more we talk about it, the more we bring those customers in, and the less we hear that I get more, I experience more from our competitors.
This is one of the wins that we get to experience on our side when we work with organizations like Gila and our other clients. These are things that we focus on with them, and that raises the bar. And then when we go in and we start with a brand new client, when we look at these types of things, you see the difference between organizations that are operating like they are versus people that haven't kind of caught on yet.
Yeah, completely. Well, that was a great conversation. Really, I think shows the power of these two very different but in similar things being used at the same time. So maybe if we can shift to, we've talked a lot about kind of getting that data and getting those insights. Maybe Greg DiVincent, I want to shift and ask you a little bit about getting that data into the hands of the leaders on properties. So do you have any best practices or even kind of your general approach for getting them this data?
I do. And I think you have to push it to them, and it's best in a group setting. So what we do is we will pull insights, and it's not just myself. It could be another executive on our team who oversees hospitality. We will find it big for insights and platform, and then bring those to our senior leadership meeting and present them. The great thing is it drives a ton of discussion, which is awesome. So when we can have that discussion on what's actually happening in our operation with the senior leadership team, which consists of the 4 property GMs and the corporate departments. We have property representation and corporate representation, all the way up to our CEO. And we have these conversations on property versus property net promoter score, or property versus department versus department, guest service percentage scores in different verticals. So it's really helpful to kind of compare restaurant to restaurant, especially a restaurant that exists across our brand. So like a Roma coffee shop or Main Dish or Rizzo's Pizza that are at more than 1, 3, or even 4 of our sites. We can compare those across the sites and say, okay, why is this one really high and this property really low? Like, what's different? And then that's where some of the mystery shops kind of come into play. Because then you can really send that expert in, and they ask the specific questions, or they look for the specific service elements. And then they come back and tell us, okay, this is what's different here versus there. Because the guests, it's a little more generality with the guests. And just one thing also about the information too is the survey data from guests has a lot of noise in it. That's, I think, probably the hardest part, is isolating that noise, especially since we're a casino. I'd say 80% of that noise is, I lost my money, your machines are so tight, your dealers are crooked, you're blah, 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 right? We've all heard it. So being able to isolate that noise, and Gregory Ramirez has found really great ways to start to do that. We're hoping AI will help us do that much better than we're doing it today, but be able to isolate that noise and really get down to the comments that matter. Like, I waited in line too long, or my jackpot wasn't paid for 20 minutes, or things that we can action, right? So those are the real meat potatoes that we get to, that actionable data. Now, I think it starts with the high level scores and department by department, property by property, guest service scores, and then getting that into a senior leadership setting and talking about it as a group.
So Craig, let me dig in a little bit. So when I think about that senior leadership session, which I think that's a fantastic place to be sharing this data for a number of reasons, but I imagine that those VP and C-suite level corporate leaders are also always thinking about ROI. And from a metric perspective, you mentioned net promoter score, guest sentiment scores. Like, what do you think, and what do you think that group would say best demonstrates ROI from both mystery shopping and survey data?
Luckily, we have a good group who understand, and this company as a whole understands the ROI of guest service. So I think it really starts there with that understanding, because we know if we can speed up a transaction, or have less people waiting in line, or have customers understanding their benefits better or pay jackpots faster. All those things are going to increase guest service and ROI for a couple of reasons. I mean, the guest service element's going to increase visitation, increase loyalization, but it also gets it back to playing and spending money faster, right? I mean, if you're waiting in line, you're not buying a slice of pizza, you're not gaming, you're not doing other things where you could be spending money. So all those things, shortening transaction times and knowing that those are too long, right? I mean, that's the battle, is to know that there's that issue at a specific outlet that will translate to ROI 100%.
To me, one of the things that Gregory Ramirez said earlier is a big component. Just using somebody's name, that drives loyalty, and that just has intrinsic ROI. People wanting to come back to a place where they feel like they're familiar and they're remembered. That's huge. I always fall back on the training aspect. I think when you have a large investment and time around training, there's just a tangible ROI to audit that training. That's always a big one. And then the last one, it sounds kind of rudimentary, but it's actually really important. When you see that people know how to properly upsell, especially at the bars and things like that, that can end up being a massive driver for ROI. I always say when I'm in the sales aspect of this, if the program actually has a lot of testing on upselling, that can pay for the program in itself very easily.
Yeah, that's a good, I hadn't thought of that, Michael, but yeah, you think whether it's a front desk upsell program to a suite or a bottled water at the steakhouse, that can add up pretty quickly and cover your cost here. So I just want to be mindful of our time here. Maybe Greg DiVincent, I'll go back to you for kind of another question here. So where do you see the future of both guest listening CX and mystery shops? How do you see it evolving at Gila River over the next few years?
For us, I mean, and we're pretty new to using both of these, less than a year. I want to say we started the Medallia surveys in November, December last year. So really not even a full year in, but I see it maturing, it getting more popularity amongst staff, amongst customers. Customers are going to start to wait for those surveys. Even we'll add it to other items like our mobile app and our website so that they can go to it and not it just be pushed to them. So as well as kind of the mystery shops diving in on the service elements and helping us to get to the accreditations that we're looking for. Those are very important for us to brand to get to that level. And we feel we can't do it without both of these platforms and both working together as well.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely an advantage of a platform like Medallia is that it traditionally starts with that post-visit. How was your stay? How was your trip? But then it really can go into, like you said, Greg, mobile app, website, employees. It really is a tool that can be widely used to collect data. And then with all of the AI that's coming, AI can kind of help you with surfacing those insights. So maybe I'll finish Greg Ramirez with a question to you. Greg, from your seat, as you're the one that's in this every day looking at feedback, if you could give a piece of advice to hospitality teams or executives and that want to improve their guest feedback program, what would be some advice that you would give, Greg?
I would probably say the first part of the hospitality success is going to be utilizing these programs, but reading between the lines with them. So it's one thing to get a score and say, wow, I got an 85 with my beverage server, or my bartender scored a 90%. That's fantastic. But when you read through the narratives of what the shopper actually experienced, you might identify that the team member was using slang. So they were using things such as, oh, hey, what's up, man? So it's not really that hospitable experience that somebody's looking for. So we can identify, is someone using slang, or are they using luxury language to say, thank you, sir. Thank you, George. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Greg, for coming in. You've earned your points today. We can't wait to see you again. Because there is space for them to be themselves and not be robotic. But those areas of identification of what can we do to elevate that service in a more professional and hospitable way is really the biggest piece. So reading between the lines, but then really passing along that information and communication with transparency. So when it comes to the leadership up, being able to speak on those things in areas that we have identified and what we can focus on, but then taking that information and then passing it down. So when you're doing meetings with site managers or middle manager leadership, you can utilize that to talk to them. And it can't be a one and done. So you don't just push the feedback from a medallia survey or from a mystery shop and say, here you go. This is where we went. Spend some time with this team member, do that. It's got to be a continuous conversation. For myself, being at a property, I know that I will go through, do touch bases and say, hey, how's your mystery shop been? What have we done to talk to this team member? Do you need my support to come up with some ideas on how to do those things? So that accountability piece is huge. So really just reading between the lines, communication transparently, and then just follow up with inspecting what you expect.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, a lot of good intel there. And yeah, I think the follow-up is key. You can't have these programs, either mystery shops or surveys, without doing anything once you get that data. If you're not following up, what is the point? So, well, with that said, we have covered a lot of ground here today, from surveys to mystery shops and the impact of those two combined. I'd like to open it up to our audience to see if there are some questions. So Alex is asking, how many secret shops do you recommend to have meaningful data?
Different properties are different, and a lot of it has to do with the goals. And one of the things I think we do very well, because we've actually, a lot of our internal employees that manage these programs have come from guest service departments and casinos. So you're dealing with somebody that's been on your side before, but it really gets into what type of property are you in? What is the goal of the program? But if we're talking about position A, I think like 2 to 3, somewhere in there, of an overnight stay. And the other thing too is we don't always have to do a hotel. We can go in and do ship visits. We can target the valet. So there's a lot, but fundamentally, if you are a hotel, resort, casino, I like 2 to 3 per month. I think that's where you get the most value.
That's quite a few over the year to see you're trending there. So yeah, that's helpful. So another question has come in here from Eric, which I think is an interesting one, and I might direct maybe to Greg DiVincent. And the question is about, how do you connect improvements from these programs to revenue impact? How do you tie this to revenue? Curious if you have any thoughts there, Greg.
I'd really go back to the things we mentioned, where if you can shorten a line and a register, get people back on a gaming floor, or things like that would more directly correlate to a connection between revenue and these programs. But I think more importantly is the holistic approach of guest service. There's just been so many studies done this, that if you are able to properly welcome a guest or address a guest, or the staff on the floor generally just looks happy, a number of things, right? I mean, we all dine at restaurants, and we all kind of know that if you have a reservation, you're addressed by your name, you're sat within a certain amount of time, the server comes by within a minute or two, at least to say hello, and then the food's good. And then most importantly, you're not waiting for 20 minutes for the check. You're going to go back, right? And if you go back, that is more revenue for the company. So, I mean, I think while we can talk about these things in concept, and there may not be a direct correlation that you can create on a report or on a spreadsheet, I'm that guy, I'm the reporting guy, right? So I like to see that correlation, but I understand that these things in concept absolutely drive ROIs for these reasons. And businesses that excel in guest service continue to grow, and businesses that don't excel stay flat as S.
Yeah, I think that those are great words, I think, to end on there. And so I want to say thank you to our panelists. So Greg from Gila River, thank you. Michael from HS Brands, thank you very much. We appreciate your expertise today. And then for everyone who joined us, we had a nice audience attend today. Thank you for your time.